The invasion begins. The night sky erupted in a dazzling display of light, but it wasn't a meteor shower or the northern lights. Commander Sarah Chen squinted through her binoculars, her heart racing as she realized the horrifying truth. The lights were alien ships entering Earth's atmosphere, their sleek forms cutting through the clouds like knives through butter. "This is it," she muttered, lowering the binoculars. "Sound the alarm. We're under attack." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Jack Morrison, nodded grimly and rushed to the command center. Within moments, sirens blared across the military base, jolting soldiers from their bunks and sending them scrambling to their stations. Sarah strode purposefully towards the command center, her mind racing. They had trained for this, prepared for this, but now that it was happening, it felt surreal. The Zarkol, an alien race from a distant galaxy, had made their intentions clear years ago when they first contacted Earth. They wanted the planet's resources, and they were willing to take them by force. As Sarah entered the bustling command center, she was greeted by a cacophony of voices and the rapid tapping of keyboards. Screens lit up with incoming data from around the globe, painting a grim picture of the invasion. "Status report," she barked, her eyes scanning the main display. Jack appeared at her side, his face pale but determined. "Multiple entry points detected, Commander. They're targeting major cities and military installations worldwide. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, all under heavy attack." Sarah nodded, her jaw clenched. "And our defenses? Holding for now, but they're taking a beating. The Zarkol technology is. It's unlike anything we've seen before." A young analyst called out from her station. "Commander, we're getting reports of some kind of energy field surrounding their ships. Our missiles are detonating before they can make contact." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. They had anticipated advanced alien technology, but this was beyond their worst fears. How could they fight an enemy they couldn't even touch? "What about our experimental weapons?" she asked, turning to Dr. Eliza Wong, the base's chief scientist. Eliza shook her head, frustration evident in her eyes. "We're not ready, Commander. The prototypes are still unstable. Using them now could be catastrophic." Sarah slammed her fist on the console, startling those around her. She took a deep breath, composing herself. "We don't have a choice, Doctor. If we don't use everything at our disposal, there won't be an Earth left to save." As if to emphasize her point, the entire base shuddered. The lights flickered ominously. "They're here," Jack whispered. Sarah straightened her back, her resolve hardening. "All right, people. This is what we've prepared for. I want all available fighters in the air now. Ground troops, prepare for potential hand-to-hand combat. We don't know what these bastards look like up close, but we're about to find out." She turned to Eliza. "Doctor, I need you and your team to work on those prototypes. Make them stable. Make them work. You have 1 hour." Eliza's eyes widened. "Commander, that's impossible." "Make it possible." Sarah cut her off. "The fate of humanity depends on it." As the command center erupted into frenzied activity, Sarah allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She thought of her family, her friends, all the people she had sworn to protect. She thought of the billions of lives hanging in the balance, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. But then she thought of humanity's history, of all the challenges they had overcome, all the odds they had defied. They had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars. They had walked on the moon, cured diseases, created art that touched the soul. They were resilient, adaptable, innovative. And now, facing their greatest threat yet, Sarah knew that humanity would not go down without a fight. Outside, the sky lit up with explosions as Earth's fighters engaged the alien ships. The ground trembled with the impact of Zarkol weapons, each blast a reminder of the devastating power they faced. Sarah took a deep breath and turned back to her team. "All right, let's show these aliens what humans are made of. For Earth." The room echoed with a resounding chorus of "For Earth." as humanity prepared to make its stand against the cosmic invaders. As the battle raged outside, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the Zarkol had in store. Their energy shields were just the beginning. She was sure of it. But humanity had surprises of its own, buried deep in secret labs and hidden bunkers around the world. The next few hours would determine the fate of the planet. Would humanity rise to the challenge, or would Earth fall to these technologically superior invaders? Sarah clenched her fists, determination burning in her eyes. They would fight, they would innovate, and they would survive. Because that's what humans do best. The invasion had begun, but this was far from the end. It was just the beginning of humanity's greatest test, and potentially their finest hour. Humanity's secret weapon. The command center of Earth's primary defense base was a hive of frantic activity. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the center of the storm, her eyes darting between holographic displays showing the ongoing alien invasion. The Zarkol ships continued their relentless assault, their energy shields rendering most of Earth's conventional weapons useless. "Commander," Lieutenant Jack Morrison called out, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of alarms and chatter. "We've lost contact with the European defense grid. London, Paris, Berlin, they're dark." Sarah's jaw clenched. The situation was deteriorating faster than she had feared. "What about the Asian front?" "Still holding, but barely," Jack replied, his fingers flying over his console. "The Chinese have managed to bring down 2 Zarkol ships over Beijing, but at a heavy cost. Half their air force is gone." A flash of hope ignited in Sarah's chest. They brought down Zarkol ships. How? Before Jack could answer, Dr. Eliza Wong burst into the command center, her lab coat singed and her hair disheveled. "Commander, we've done it." Sarah spun to face the scientist, her heart racing. "The prototype." Eliza nodded, her eyes gleaming with a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "We've stabilized it. It's ready for deployment." A hush fell over the command center as all eyes turned to Sarah. This was the moment of truth, the culmination of years of secret research and development. Humanity's last, best hope against the alien invaders. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "All right, Doctor. Show me what we've got." Eliza nodded and activated a holographic display in the center of the room. A 3D image of what looked like a sleek handheld device appeared, rotating slowly in the air. "We call it the Pulse," Eliza explained, her voice filled with pride. "It's a quantum entanglement disruptor. In layman's terms, it creates a localized field that interferes with the very fabric of space-time." Jack frowned, confusion evident on his face. "And how exactly does that help us against the Zarkol?" Eliza's lips curled into a smile. "Their energy shields, their advanced propulsion systems, they all rely on manipulating quantum fields. The Pulse disrupts those fields, rendering their technology temporarily useless." Sarah's eyes widened as the implications sank in. "You mean?" "Yes, Commander," Eliza nodded. "With the Pulse, we can bring down their shields, disable their weapons, even interfere with their ship controls. It levels the playing field." For the first time since the invasion began, Sarah felt a glimmer of real hope. But her tactical mind was already racing ahead, considering the challenges. "How many of these devices do we have?" Eliza's smile faltered slightly. "That's the catch. We only have 5 prototype units ready. Mass production will take time we don't have." Sarah nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. "Then we'll have to make them count. Jack, get me a secure line to our remaining Allied command centers. We need to coordinate a synchronized strike." As Jack rushed to establish communications, Sarah turned back to Eliza. "How close do we need to be for the Pulse to be effective?" "Ideally, within a kilometer of the target," Eliza replied. "But the closer, the better." Sarah's expression hardened. She knew what that meant. Whoever deployed the Pulse would be putting themselves directly in harm's way, right in the heart of the alien assault. "Commander," Jack called out, I've got Beijing, Moscow, and what's left of the European command on the line. Sarah squared her shoulders and approached the communication hub. The faces of her counterparts from around the world appeared on the screens, each bearing the signs of exhaustion and desperation. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah began, her voice steady and determined. We have a weapon that can turn the tide of this war, but we'll only get one shot at this. Here's the plan. Over the next hour, Sarah outlined a daring strategy. 5 strike teams, each armed with a pulse device, would target key Zarkol command ships in simultaneous attacks. The goal was to create chaos in the alien fleet, giving Earth's forces a chance to launch a massive counteroffensive. As the details were hammered out, Sarah couldn't help but feel the weight of history on her shoulders. This plan would cost lives. Brave men and women willing to sacrifice everything for a chance at victory. But the alternative was the extinction of the human race. Any questions? Sarah asked as she concluded her briefing. The Russian general, his face grim but determined, spoke up. Who will lead these strike teams? This is practically a suicide mission. Sarah met his gaze unflinchingly. I will lead the team targeting the Zarkol flagship over North America. I expect each of you to do the same in your theaters of operation. A moment of solemn silence followed as the magnitude of the situation sank in. Then, one by one, the commanders nodded their agreement. Very well, Sarah said, her voice filled with resolve. We launch in 3 hours. May God have mercy on our souls, because the Zarkol certainly won't. As the communication ended, Sarah turned to find Jack standing behind her, his expression a mix of admiration and concern. Commander, I'd like to volunteer for your strike team. Sarah smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. I wouldn't have it any other way, Jack. Now, let's gear up. We've got a planet to save. As they left the command center, alarms still blaring and reports of destruction pouring in from around the world, Sarah felt a strange calm settle over her. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and the odds were stacked against them. But if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was defying the odds. The Zarkol thought they had won, that Earth was ripe for the taking. They were about to learn a painful lesson about the indomitable spirit of humanity. The real battle was just beginning, and Sarah Chen intended to make it one for the history books. As she stepped onto the tarmac, the sky ablaze with the fires of invasion, Sarah looked up at the looming form of a Zarkol command ship. In a few hours, she would be up there, fighting not just for her life, but for the very future of her species. Ready or not, she muttered, her hand tightening around the pulse device. Here we come. The turning of the tide, the roar of the Razorwing's engines filled Commander Sarah Chen's ears as the stealth aircraft soared through the night sky. Beside her, Lieutenant Jack Morrison gripped the pulse device tightly, his knuckles white with tension. 4 other elite soldiers completed their strike team, each face set with grim determination. 2 minutes to target. The pilot's voice crackled over the comm. Sarah took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. The Zarkol flagship loomed ahead, a massive structure of alien metal that seemed to devour the starlight around it. Smaller fighter craft swarmed around it like angry wasps, their energy weapons painting deadly patterns in the sky. Remember, Sarah addressed her team, we only get one shot at this. The pulse has to be activated as close to the ship's core as possible for maximum effect. Jack nodded, double-checking the device. What about extraction, Commander? Sarah met his gaze, her expression somber. Let's focus on getting in first, Lieutenant. The unspoken truth hung heavy in the air. This was likely a one-way mission. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the Razorwing. We've been spotted, the pilot shouted. Hang on. The aircraft lurched violently as it performed evasive maneuvers, narrowly avoiding streaks of alien energy weapons. Sarah gritted her teeth, fighting the G-forces as the pilot pushed the Razorwing to its limits. We're not going to make it to the insertion point, the pilot called out, his voice strained. Sarah made a split-second decision. Get us as close as you can, then open the bay doors. Commander. Jack's eyes widened in realization. We're going to have to jump, Sarah confirmed, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. As the team hurriedly donned their experimental exosuits, another secret weapon developed for just such an emergency, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the absurdity of their situation. Here they were, about to perform a high-altitude jump onto an alien spacecraft, armed with a device that defied the laws of physics as they knew them. It was like something out of a science fiction novel. The bay doors opened, and the roar of the wind filled the cabin. Sarah looked at her team, saw the fear in their eyes, but also the unwavering resolve. For Earth, she shouted over the din. For Earth, they echoed, and as one, they leaped into the abyss. The freefall was both terrifying and exhilarating. Sarah watched as energy bolts from Zarkol fighters streaked past them, missing by mere meters. The flagship grew larger by the second, its hull a maze of strange geometries and pulsing lights. Activate thrusters on my mark, Sarah commanded through the comlink. 3, 2, 1, mark. The team's exosuits came to life, small but powerful thrusters guiding them towards a section of the ship that seemed less heavily defended. As they approached, Sarah noticed what appeared to be an airlock or docking port. There, aimed for that opening. The landing was rough, the alien metal unforgiving as they slammed into it at speed. But the exosuits absorbed much of the impact, and within moments, the team was on their feet, magnetic boots securing them to the hull. Jack, the airlock. Sarah pointed. As Jack worked on bypassing the alien security systems, Sarah and the others provided cover fire, their weapons, enhanced with technology reverse-engineered from previous Zarkol encounters, actually managing to take down a couple of approaching defense drones. With a hiss, the airlock opened, and the team piled in. As it sealed behind them, they found themselves in an otherworldly corridor, bathed in a sickly green light. Which way to the core? One of the soldiers asked. Sarah consulted the 3D map they'd compiled from long-range scans. This way. Stay alert. We don't know what kind of internal defenses they have. As they moved deeper into the ship, the alien nature of their surroundings became even more apparent. The walls seemed to pulse with an inner life, and strange symbols flickered in the air, holographic displays that made no sense to human eyes. They encountered surprisingly little resistance at first, making Sarah suspicious. They're hurting us, she realized aloud. Be ready for an ambush. No sooner had the words left her mouth than the corridor ahead filled with a shimmering energy field. Behind them, heavy doors slammed shut. It's a trap, Jack yelled, raising his weapon. But before anyone could fire, the energy field coalesced into a form. A Zarkol warrior, nearly 3 meters tall, its body a strange fusion of organic and mechanical parts. Humans, the alien's voice reverberated in their minds, a telepathic communication that sent chills down Sarah's spine. Your efforts are futile. Your world is already ours. Sarah stepped forward, her weapon trained on the Zarkol. We beg to differ. The alien's multifaceted eyes seemed to shimmer with amusement. Brave, but foolish. You cannot hope to defeat us with your primitive technology. Maybe not, Sarah agreed, her finger tightening on the trigger. But we're sure as hell going to try. What followed was a battle unlike anything they had trained for. The Zarkol warrior moved with impossible speed, its energy weapons capable of bending around corners. The human team fought with everything they had, their enhanced weapons and exosuits allowing them to hold their own, if barely. But they were taking hits, one by one. Sarah watched her soldiers fall. Jack was hit in the leg, his exosuit the only thing keeping him in the fight. As Sarah ducked behind a twisted piece of alien machinery, her mind raced. They were running out of time and options. The core was still several levels away, and at this rate, they'd never make it. Then, an idea struck her. A crazy, desperate idea, but one that just might work. Jack, she called out. The pulse. Activated now. Jack looked at her in shock. But we're nowhere near the core. It won't have the range tow. Trust me, Sarah interrupted. Do it. With a nod, Jack activated the pulse device. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the air around them began to shimmer and distort. The Zarkol warrior let out a telepathic scream of agony as its systems began to fail. But that wasn't all. The entire ship seemed to shudder and groan. Lights flickered, and gravity itself seemed to fluctuate wildly. What's happening? One of the surviving soldiers shouted. Sarah's eyes widened as she realized the full extent of what they'd done. The ship, it's not just powered by quantum fields, it's held together by them. As if to confirm her words, cracks began to appear in the walls around them, strange energies leaking through. We need to get out of here now, Sarah commanded. Back to the airlock. As they retreated, half carrying their wounded, the ship continued to tear itself apart around them. The Zarkol warrior lay motionless behind them, its systems completely fried by the pulse. They reached the airlock just as massive chunks of the ship began to break away. Without hesitation, Sarah hit the release, and they were sucked out into the void of space. As they fell towards Earth, their exosuits automatically orienting them for re-entry, Sarah watched in awe as the Zarkol flagship disintegrated above them. All around the world, she knew, similar scenes were playing out as the other strike teams succeeded in their missions. The tide of the battle had turned. Humanity had landed a devastating blow against the invaders. But as the heat of re-entry began to build around them, Sarah knew that this was far from over. The Zarkol would regroup, would come back with new defenses against the pulse. But for now, for this moment, they had won. They had shown the aliens, and themselves, what humanity was capable of when pushed to the brink. As the clouds parted, and the scared landscape of Earth came into view, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. They had bought their world a chance, a hope for survival. And sometimes, a chance was all humanity needed to achieve the impossible. Alien revelations. The corridors of the captured harvester vessel echoed with an eerie silence, broken only by the careful footsteps of the boarding party. Captain Maya Ortiz led the way, her pulse rifle at the ready, followed closely by Dr. Eliza Wong and a mixed team of human and alien specialists. I still can't believe your crazy plan worked, Maya muttered to Eliza, her eyes constantly scanning for threats. Eliza managed a tired smile. Sometimes, the most straightforward solution is the one they least expect. They never thought we'd be bold enough to teleport directly onto their ship. The plan had been audacious indeed. Using the data Eliza had uncovered, they had managed to briefly disrupt the harvester's shielding, allowing a small team to teleport aboard. Now, they were deep in the belly of the beast, searching for answers that could turn the tide of the war. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with the ship's central computer core, a massive, pulsating structure that seemed almost organic in nature. This is it, Eliza breathed, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and scientific curiosity. If we can access this, we might finally understand what we're really up against. While Eliza and her team got to work, Maya and the others formed a defensive perimeter. The ship had been surprisingly devoid of resistance so far, which only served to put Maya more on edge. I don't like this, she murmured. It's too quiet. Where are all the harvesters? As if in answer to her question, a low rumble began to reverberate through the ship. The walls seemed to pulse, and strange, shifting patterns of light danced across their surface. Doc. Maya called out, her grip tightening on her weapon. Whatever you're going to do it fast. I think we've overstayed our welcome. Eliza's fingers flew across the alien interface, her mind racing to decipher the complex systems before her. Just a few more minutes, she called back. I think I'm close to. Her words were cut off as a blinding flash of light filled the chamber. When it faded, Maya found herself face to face with something. It wasn't quite solid, more like a shimmering field of energy in a vaguely humanoid shape. Greetings, children of the young races. A voice echoed in their minds, somehow conveying both ancient wisdom and cold indifference. You have come far to seek answers. Are you prepared for the truth? Maya stepped forward, her weapon still raised. Who? What are you? The being's form rippled, as if in amusement. We are the harvesters, yes. But we are also so much more. We are the caretakers of the galaxy, the pruners of the cosmic garden. Eliza joined Maya, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. What do you mean? Why are you attacking us? Attacking. The being's tone was almost confused. No, you misunderstand. We are saving you. Saving all of you. The room fell silent as the implications of those words sank in. It was Quanthy, the insectoid engineer from the Arcavian hive, who broke the silence. Saving us from what? The being's form expanded, filling the room with swirling patterns of energy. Suddenly, they were no longer on the ship, but floating in space, watching the birth and death of stars, the rise and fall of civilizations. From yourselves, the being explained. From the inevitable fall that comes to all technological civilizations. We have seen it countless times over countless suns. As species advance, they invariably create the tools of their own destruction. AI that surpasses and replaces them. Weapons that can shatter planets. Experiments that unravel the fabric of space-time itself. Images flashed before them. Worlds consumed by nanoplagues. Stars collapsing into artificial black holes. Entire galaxies winking out of existence. We intervene, the being continued, to preserve the cycle of life. We harvest the essence of advanced civilizations, storing their knowledge, their culture, their very being. Then we allow the younger races to flourish, to have their time in the cosmic spotlight, before they too advance to the point of self-destruction. Maya felt sick to her stomach. So you're saying, all of this, the war, the destruction, it's for our own good. The being's form contracted, focusing on Maya. From our perspective, yes, it is a kindness, a mercy. The alternative is far worse. Eliza stepped forward, her mind racing. But we've united. Different species working together, combining our knowledge, our strengths. Surely that changes things. For the first time, the being seemed to hesitate. Your alliance, it is unprecedented. In all our cycles, we have never seen such cooperation between disparate species. It is intriguing. A spark of hope ignited in Maya's chest. Then give us a chance, she pleaded. Let us prove that we can advance without destroying ourselves. That together, we can overcome the challenges you fear. The being was silent for a long moment, its form shifting and swirling as if in deep contemplation. Finally, it spoke again. Your proposal is interesting. It goes against all we have known, all we have done for countless millennia. And yet, suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The illusion of space vanished, and they were back in the computer core. Others of my kind approach, the being said, its voice urgent. They will not be as open to negotiation as I am. You must leave, now. But know this. Your words have been heard. The harvest may yet be delayed. Before anyone could respond, they found themselves back on the Defiant, the harvester ship rapidly shrinking in the distance. As Maya and her team tried to process what they had just experienced, a message came through from the Nexus. Admiral Vasquez's hologram appeared, her expression a mix of confusion and hope. Captain Ortiz, she said, I don't know what you did over there, but the Harvester fleet, they're retreating. All of them. They're just leaving. Maya exchanged a look with Eliza, both of them still reeling from their encounter. Admiral, Maya said slowly, you're not going to believe what we just learned. As the Defiant made its way back to the Nexus, Maya couldn't help but feel that they had just turned a major corner in this conflict. The Harvesters weren't mindless destroyers. They were ancient, misguided protectors. And somehow, against all odds, humanity and its allies had managed to make them question their age-old mission. The war wasn't over. Far from it. But for the first time since the harvesters appeared, there was a glimmer of hope for a resolution that didn't end in extinction. As Maya looked out at the stars, she realized that the greatest challenge was yet to come. They had to prove that their alliance, their unity, could overcome the fatal flaws the harvesters had seen in so many civilizations before. It was a daunting task. But as she watched her human and alien crew working seamlessly together, Maya felt a surge of determination. They would find a way. They had to. The future of not just their species, but of all life in the galaxy, depended on it.